Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Activating Partnerships for Product-Based Founders. My name is Brian Luxinger. I'm here today with the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. For those of you who may not know, the Nasdaq Center is a nonprofit improving access and knowledge in entrepreneurship to advance economic progress for all. As you'll see in the chat in just a moment, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to help entrepreneurs fuel prosperity no matter where in their journey begins. Be sure to check out the links and resources shared in the chat. I'm going to launch a few polls to step back and take a temperature gauge of how all of you are doing today. We use this information to guide the programs we provide for the global community of entrepreneurs. If there's any specific topics or challenges you'd like for us to create resources for, feel free to share them in the chat. Just a couple of quick housekeeping notes before we get started. First, let us know where you're dialing in from by dropping it in the chat. We'd love to see where all of you are coming in from today. Second, we'll have a live Q&A at the end of the event, so feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get to as many as that we can. While you guys are all answering this, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the incredible support from our corporate partners. The work we do at the center could not be possible without the generosity and belief of our partners and funders, including Nasdaq, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, KPMG, Walmart, the Asia Innovation Hub, Wilson Sonsini, the Narit Foundation, and BPM. We're deeply grateful for their partnership, and we hope you'll join us in sharing that appreciation. I do like taking a moment and just seeing where some people are all coming in from. I know we had a couple earlier from New York and Philadelphia. We have some from the West Coast as well. So love seeing all of you all coming in here, just keeping an eye on the chat. But without further ado, we will be turning it off, or without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our special guest, Samantha Carroll, co-founder of Once Upon a Brand. Thank you so much, Samantha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Brian, and for the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. I am going to go over to share my screen and then we'll get started. Bear with me 1 minute, and here we go. So good morning for those on the West Coast and good afternoon on the East Coast where I'm at. I'm so excited for today's topic, activating partnerships for product-based founders. I am so thrilled to be back with the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center community, sharing insights on a topic that's truly something that I'm passionate about, which is leveraging partnerships to accelerate growth, boost visibility, and really deepen understanding of your brand. So I've got today's agenda up here. We really have a packed agenda to maximize your learning in a short amount of time. We'll begin with a quick pulse check to see where you currently stand with partnerships and also what you hope to gain from today's session. This is going to help identify key area that you can focus on as your actionable takeaway that I hope you can take with you from this webinar. Next, we'll explore why partnerships are crucial in 2025 and discuss some strategic approaches to scaling your CPG brand through collaboration. We're then going to turn inward, examining how to really clarify your values, audience, and goals, which are all essential steps to prepare for pitching potential partners. From there, we're going to shift our focus outward, discussing some strategies for enhancing brand visibility using a multi-pronged approach. We'll dive into what makes a partnership truly win-win and how to foster those valuable relationships before finally wrapping up with considerations for sustainable growth as your business evolves. So with that, let's get started. To introduce myself, if you've never encountered something I've done with the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center or elsewhere, I am, as Brian mentioned, the CEO of Once Upon a Brand, a public relations Society of America award-winning communications consultancy. We advise growth and mature stage clients on brand and communication strategy and practice, as well as supporting C-suite leaders and board members with opportunities to build their own executive reputation to accelerate both their organizations and their own professional brand growth. I am also a communications advisor with Emory University, advancement and alumni engagement, and have been a contributor to Georgetown University McDonough School of Business, Bloomberg Business Week, Catalant, and the Hot Mamas Project at George Washington University. And in 2024, I co-founded a women's leadership development community called Light Her Way, which is focused really on the curation of conversation and resources, excuse me, to increase opportunities for visibility and access to decision makers. So I wanted to start today with kind of two quick polls, as I mentioned, to get a little bit of a pulse check so that we can understand some of the pain points of other CPG founders on this webinar, as well as gain a little more self-awareness of your own bottlenecks. So here we go. And I think I have a helper launching the poll, and I will just read it out. The biggest challenge in forming strategic partnerships is finding the right partners who align with our values and vision, getting in the door with decision makers at larger companies, structuring win-win partnership terms, maintaining long-term engagement and collaboration, lack of knowledge or network to start conversations, or all of the above. Brian, are we seeing any results come through? Because on my end, I'm
Yeah,
not.
sorry, Samantha. I was just pinging Michelle on the back end here. It looks like there's
That's okay.
a function error that's getting resolved right now. It was
Okay.
hosts and panelists cannot vote at the moment. So I think it's just getting resolved in the settings. And then we should, sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
I think we'll just go ahead and relaunch that. There we go.
Yep, there we go. Okay, perfect. So we can see it's actually kind of spread out, right? We have different concerns. It's interesting to see how others fare on this poll. And let's now go to the next one, which is, what support would help you most in building successful partnerships? Warm introductions to potential partners or investors, training on negotiation and partnership structuring, access to case studies from successful partnerships, understanding whether it's worth pursuing, or tools and technology to manage and measure the success, or all of the above. Okay, so it looks like warm introductions and maybe how to structure that partnership and negotiate are the big areas. So thank you for taking that moment. And this, as I said, should give you a little bit of a kind of an action item as we work through this presentation. And when you leave today, hopefully you'll have a little bit of a clearer sense of how to move forward. So I want to begin our discussion today just by defining what we mean by strategic partnerships for CPG brands. So one of my favorite quotes is from the marketing genius Seth Godin, who many of you may know. And he says, people do not buy goods and services, they buy relations, stories, and magic. So if people buy stories and magic, then what we really need to do is to create experiences and connection with our consumers. Strategic partnerships are really relationships that are forged between brands to activate mutually beneficial outcomes and really help us to improve this relationship and connection with our target consumers. Now, more than ever in 2025, strategic partnerships are really not just helpful, but they're really essential catalysts for scaling CPG brand growth, both in sales and in reputation and visibility. So why do partnerships matter in today's market? And there's a number of reasons why it's so important. First, consumers are really overloaded with product choices. If you are a parent with a young child, think about the last time you had to buy a car seat or a stroller or figure out the most eco-friendly, gentle shampoo brands. You might have reached out to other parents or friends with kids to ask for their recommendations, simply because there's just so many products out there on the market that you're going to that trusted resource. So why does it matter? Because you trust those relationships, right? And so therefore, you're more likely to purchase based on those recommendations. Partnerships are really a shortcut to building credibility with the customer. The second point is that one partner really begets another one. So when we can leverage the trusted relationship we've built with one partner or even several partners, it only helps us to attract more partners. So think of an influencer who is just starting to build maybe paid promotional opportunities and one who's been doing it for years and years. The latter is maybe more likely to develop these profitable partnerships with greater visibility because they're already a proven channel partner. Third bullet down is that when we expand our reach, we're able to acquire new audiences without the heavy burden on our marketing budgets if we can create a win-win scenario. So that's something that we're going to talk a little bit more about towards the end of today's webinar. Sharing marketing dollars, consumer audiences, or channel access also helps us to grow smarter and faster. And we can easily measure growth by looking at things like realized sales or social currency or website traffic or any number of marketing metrics. As consumers, we all experience CPG partnerships in our day-to-day lives, but we might not flip the script as easily when it's our brand that's ready to engage in collaboration. So there are many, many ways in which the CPG landscape has shifted in the last 5 to 10 years, but I've outlined just a few major shifts before we explore kind of how to activate them. So here we've got this influential partnerships. Influential partnerships focus really on authenticity, right? So authentic reviews. UGC is user-generated content amplification with the outcome of building trust, engagement, and really provide an opportunity to respond and gain feedback from the consumer base. In values-aligned partnerships, we see impact-focused partnerships come together around an aligned issue or advocacy of some kind. They tap into consumer values and deep connections that help build that loyalty. And the last area is data-driven partnerships. So now we are much in a better place to share consumer research and leverage shared data. And the outcome here is that there's basically a deeper audience understanding and a greater alignment that we can see of these partnership opportunities. So now that we understand why partnerships matter, let's talk a little bit about how to activate them. So we're going to do a little bit of introspection and kind of look inward by understanding our brand and our goals. And the first step here is really to know our key audiences. So here it's, going through exercises of who are we really trying to reach? But it's not just who are we trying to reach today. I want you to think about your aspirational audience. Who do you want to reach not only today, but also tomorrow? You can ask yourself, what do my customers care about the most? What pain points do they have? Where are they already spending their attention and their money? So you can even, as I'm talking, kind of jot down maybe 2 audience groups and note some behaviors or trends that define them. Recently, I was on a panel discussing ways that we can better engage and communicate with those across generations. And it's so vitally important that we consider the preferences of our different audiences. So if we have a product that appeals to Gen X and Gen Z, we really need to be thinking about ways that we can find those audiences where they are and appeal to their preferences, behaviors, habits, etc. Step 2 is brand values. So it's really, really important that we clarify our brand values, meaning what values are most important to your brand, and then position ourselves with a unique value proposition. So questions you can ask yourself here might include, what do you stand for? What does your brand stand for? That's absolutely non-negotiable. What makes you different in a crowded CPG space? So this could be sustainability, it could be community impact, cultural connection, or simply just an elevated product experience. So you can write down maybe 3 brand values, 3 to 5 brand values, and then articulate your unique value proposition in 1 sentence. It should be very, very concise and very clear for other potential partners to understand. So you can kind of think of it like a promise that you deliver that no one else can. So step 3 here is really about establishing growth goals. So now let's shift to growth planning. What's your measurable objective for the next, let's say, year to 2 years that a partnership could help you achieve? Is it expanding into a new retail channel or growing brand awareness? Do you want to drive revenue growth? So it's often really helpful to know where you want to end up and then backtrack into a plan to help you achieve it. The best partnerships are truly about alignment. And so finding partners who can amplify your values, can connect with your audience, or you maybe have shared audiences, or offer you opportunities to grow is really the foundation you need to build before you engage in any partnership outreach or activation. So there are several types of partnerships that can completely change the game for CPG founders. I have focused on probably the most prevalent kind of partnerships out there. And some of these you may already have been thinking about or are even implementing. So the first is retail partnerships. So this type of partnership happens when a brand works with a retailer to develop exclusive products or offers. So I'm going to give you a quick example of this, which is that perhaps a brand might offer a special discount through a retailer's loyalty program, or maybe they're doing a joint product launch that's only available at certain stores. They may offer a specific discount or reward if you buy that product through their website or at that specific store. And the goals here are really to increase sales volume. It might also be to secure prominent shelf space that you would like to be in. And then really to incentivize consumers to try your product, right? So think about, we talked about win-win partnerships. Think about what social currency you could maybe extend their way or how you might offer value to them in return. When we think about distribution partnerships, these are when CPG brands work with intermediaries like distributors or brokers to manage logistics and get their products to consumers. So an example here is if a smaller beverage brand partnered with a large distributor, in the hopes that that distributor that has established relationships with many different retailers can help get the product into consumers' hands. So the goals here would be kind of expanding that market reach, right? Simplifying distribution complexities, and kind of accessing established sales networks. Co-branding partnerships is an area I work a lot in when I'm advising clients. So this is where two brands come together to create a new product, campaign, or offer. So an example in the CPG space could be a limited edition makeup collection, maybe, or when you see, I have kids who are very big into Squishmallows, stuffed animals. So if you see Squishmallows that are Disney characters, right? That's like a co-branded product that's out there. And so the goals here are, yes, attracting new audiences. That's the goal of all of these, but also to create excitement and really leverage that shared customer base. Influencer partnerships, many of us are very, very familiar with. Partnering with social media influencers or celebrities that can help promote our products or create some buzz there. And in addition to building brand awareness, this is really about gaining credibility in the marketplace, and allowing users to demonstrate the value of the product and be kind of those friends or those recommenders, right, that we talked about in the beginning. For product co-development, this is where two products come together to actually develop something. So years ago, you might remember Nike and Apple merging fitness and technology as a partnership where Nike actually partnered with Apple to create the Nike Plus system. And so here again, the benefits are that Nike's now gained access to Apple's expertise in the wearable technology sector, while Apple expanded its reach within Nike's large base of athletes and fitness enthusiasts, et cetera. And so this alliance was a great example of this co-development. Another one, as you remember when the Barbie movie came out, and Hasbro, creating Monopoly editions featuring Mattel's iconic Barbie dolls. So that's kind of bringing a classic board game to life with this kind of beloved fashion doll theme. And the last here is technology partnerships. So technology partnerships are collaborating with technology providers or other brands to implement new digital tools and strategies. So an example here could be partnering with an AI-powered platform for consumer insights or implementing advanced or updated e-commerce and data solutions. So we're kind of trying to gain this competitive edge in perhaps an evolving market and getting real data. The key takeaway for all of these activations is really that partnerships aren't just about borrowing someone else's spotlight. They're really about creating an experience of shared value that you could not unlock yourself. So the right alliances don't just help you scale sales, but they also expand your reputation and help you improve that connection that really is going to resonate deeply with your consumers. So we talked about a couple of these examples, and I wanted to just show you, kind of a visual representation of how we kind of see some of these examples in the real world. When we think about partnerships, we really want to build systems, as I mentioned, that leverage a multi-pronged approach. So don't think of, okay, I'm going to do one partnership and that's going to be it. There are so many things at our fingertips now out there that can be really easy ways to partner. And so I put a couple of examples in here. And I'll give you, kind of another example of a healthcare tech platform. So let's say that is your company, right? So you might consider partnering with influencers who can spread your message or post videos of people actually using the platform. And that might be one partnership, influencer partnership. But you also might consider, how do you partner with a local hospital to provide physicians maybe a discounted price to the platform so that you're actually getting it into the hands of both the healthcare workers and then also the patient population that they then consult. So in this example, we're able to tap into many different audiences in just a couple of different ways. I want to spend a moment. I know that's a lot of information, and I want to pivot a little bit to a way that some can be a really low barrier to entry in terms of thinking about partnerships. So leveraging partner collateral is an incredible way to reach all of these different audiences that might actually offer a really targeted audience of already engaged followers. So any of these options I've included that we just walked through are really avenues that you can leverage to talk about the partnerships you've created and really maximize that reach. While they might, guest articles, podcasts, presentations, we have product demo videos, swag bags, or even digital giveaways, Q&A sessions, and newsletters. And I could go on and on with this list, but here's just a couple for you. And while these may not seem like partnerships, they can really offer you repeatable exposure in a win-win relationship if there's true alignment. There's typically a shared outreach effort, and it can also provide opportunities for revenue sharing or even affiliate marketing type partnerships. So we now know of the ways in which we can partner, and we understand how critical it is in the brand growth journey. So now let's put all of these pieces together by creating your toolkit. So the very first step in partnership development is to really identify your prospects. So I want you to think back to the opportunities we've covered and really spend some time thinking about how you want to show up and who you want to show up in front of. It's crucial to partner with brands whose target audience, whose values and strategic goals align with yours. So think about potential partners' reputation and reliability. You want to consider, can their operational capabilities really support the demands of the partnership? Because if it becomes one-sided, that's really kind of ends up being a red flag, and deterioration of that partnership can happen over time. Do they have clear avenues to reach the audience, not once, but repeatedly, right? So we're going to dive into these, the next three on this slide a little bit more. So with positioning and pitching, now we've got our prospective partners, and now we're really ready to position the brand and then pitch the brand for partnerships. So the first thing here I have is to show your cards, right? So you want to engage in this conversation by really allowing this potential partner to understand what it is you have to offer. So for smaller CPG brand founders, this can be tricky when you haven't had a lot of sales, or you haven't reached a set revenue goal yet. But you can always think about your audience size, right? The number of eyeballs. You can think about perhaps the access that you have to specific groups or thought leaders or existing partners, right? Remember, one partner begets other partners. So think about your track record and think about what you can show in terms of the ability to reach that audience and engage them. And then, of course, if you have a proven concept or you have proven success or sales, absolutely, you should share that information. Case studies are a great way to help others understand your value and your growth potential. So once we kind of know what we want to show our potential partners, we then want to actually craft a pitch, right? So think about if you've ever pitched media or developed a script for a presentation, right? We want to design a succinct pitch or script to really help us to present our kind of argument, right? Our pitch. And then also scale those conversations by kind of knowing exactly what we have to offer and exactly what we want to get out of that conversation. So tailor your pitch to each partner's specific needs, right? This is really important to switch up the pitch based on the audience that you're speaking to. So you can highlight how the partnership will benefit them by demonstrating, let's say, your product's potential with data, right? Maybe you can share performance data or some demographic research. Maybe there are market trends that can help you to illustrate the demand for that product. It's really, really important here to invest in professional marketing materials. So whether you do this yourself or hire somebody outside, you need to think through a pitch deck, a one-pager, case studies, things of this nature that can help you convey the same quality that you want associated with your brand. So this is really kind of the first impression, right, of your value, and it conveys how serious you are about wanting this potential partnership and how much work you're ready to put forward. The next point I want to make is to be realistic and to be fair in your proposals to others. As I've mentioned a couple of times, a good partnership is not one-sided. It is mutually beneficial. And so it really is about establishing a balance of responsibilities and creating an arrangement where everyone sees success, right? And then finally, just kind of clearly defining these terms and expectations. So think of it like, it's not about the opportunity only right now, but it's really about the opportunities to come, right? Sometimes the idea of implementing a partnership can feel very overwhelming. So I wanted to walk through another kind of real world example just to show you how this could manifest in practice. So let's say your goal is to increase awareness among health conscious millennials. So a smart partner could be a local boutique fitness studio that maybe already has a loyal, trusted community that's aligned with your target audience. Maybe together you design a co-branded event. So that could be like a wellness weekend or a wellness retreat. In this kind of a partnership, perhaps the fitness studio provides the space and the instructors, and maybe you provide the product samples, the branded swag, and then maybe share that marketing cost or the promotional cost associated with the event. So what's important here is to really clarify the roles up front. So think through who's responsible for logistics, who covers which costs, how is that promotion going to be shared, right? Is one person going to handle all email, the other is going to handle all social media? Is it going to be split up? And what this does is really prevent misunderstandings and keeps both partners invested and committed in the success. Finally, make sure you've agreed also on how to measure success. So for this event, in my example, it could be the number of attendees who come. It could be a measurement of social engagement, maybe new email signups, or even, an increase in product purchases. So you can kind of notice how this example is so simple, but really powerful, because what it's doing is helping you to scale that audience outreach by expanding the reach to an existing customer base and really creating a memorable experience without really having to spend a lot of money. So we just kind of talked a little bit about evaluation, but what we need to think about is, what are those KPIs that we need to consider? And so how can you kind of go back and gather information about the success of that partnership, right? So it kind of comes down to 4 steps. The first step is reach, right? So did you hit your targets? Let's say you had a goal of a certain number of attendees coming to that wellness retreat. Did you get that number of attendees? Did you go above and beyond those attendees? Have you done a similar event on your own and with a partner? And can you then compare those two? Is there an increase in social media reach, right? So trackable links are actually a great way to see how much action each party was able to take, and then how engaged that particular audience was in terms of using that link. We can also look at engagement and community impact. So was your audience engaged? How do we know? We could do a feedback survey pretty easily. We can contact a small focus group, maybe. We can talk to the fitness studio. Maybe they have gained a certain number of memberships since that event happened. We can look also at brand growth as a third area. So did your brand see growth in sales or awareness? Were you able to distribute X amount of product samples? Did you get X amount of new email signups? And then the last one is, earned media is another way to evaluate the success of a partnership. So is this partnership allowing you to grab the attention of influencers or potentially journalists? And really, the last one is looking at the health of the partnership. And so you always, after a partnership, want to look at, did we both feel like this was worthwhile, right? Did we meet both of our objectives? And so if the answer is yes, then we've really been able to set the stage for a long-term collaboration. And if it didn't work out, then, maybe there's still value there in some kind of other way of partnering. I know we're getting close to time and we're going to do a little live Q&A at the end. So I just am going to finish with, how we think about developing a sustainable model for partnership. So partners, here I have alignment of objectives and priorities, which we've talked a little bit about. So partners may have different business goals and priorities for the partnership, potentially leading to conflicts and difficulty in executing kind of, joint initiatives or these partnerships. So maintaining transparency about what you want to get out of the partnership and how you'd like to support your partner are really critical to the sustainability of that collaboration. So aligning the objectives and priorities in the beginning of the conversation is really critical. The second is open and clear communication. So when we don't have clear and consistent communication channels, it can lead us down a path to partnership misunderstandings, missed deadlines, and inefficiency, which all obviously are not going to help us in terms of building a sustainable system for partnership and collaboration moving forward. And then managing expectations, right? So when we have unclear expectations, about the scope or about deliverables or even financial arrangements about sharing costs. These can also be red flags that we just want to kind of steer clear from. So clarity really at the outset of a partnership is really crucial for kind of preventing these kinds of disputes. I know that was a ton of information. I'm excited to see some of the questions that you may have. Before we get to questions, I did want to put this information up so that if you want to reach out to me online, if you have a question after the fact and want to reach out, I'm happy to engage in that way. And if anyone's interested in women's leadership development and wants to connect with Light Her Way, that's a great other way to identify potential partners that may be a good fit for you or your brand. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to get into questions.
Thank you so much, Samantha. That was incredible. And as someone who works in partnerships, I was taught a lot during this. So I'm excited to hear what some of the questions that are coming in from the audiences.
Awesome.
And we have gotten a couple. So we've also had a couple submitted beforehand. So we'll be taking the live Q&A first from everyone in the chat here. And then if we have any time in the latter half, we will address the ones that came in online. So the first one is, what is the difference between a pitch deck and a media kit?
Oh, okay. This is a great question. So a media kit is used in a couple different scenarios, but it's a great way to convey the size of your audience, the potential reach that you have, right? So you can include things like your social media audience, maybe your website traffic. It's going to look a little bit different for different companies. You can show a little bit of your growth. And then you can also show media, right? Like attention that you've already gotten in that media kit. And so a lot of times we send media kits in partnerships where we may want to be exploring advertising opportunities or marketing opportunities. But they can also just be really helpful to give someone a snapshot, right, of kind of where your company is at versus a pitch deck that can kind of go through, if I'm looking at the lens of a partnership, I want to think of a pitch deck as what information is crucial to this conversation and is going to help give someone the information they need to make a decision about partnering. So if you're thinking about pitching partnerships, you may want to include in a pitch deck other partnerships you've had, maybe even some case studies, right, of how you've been able to have partnerships in other scenarios or the success of those partnerships. So you want to really think of that deck as really helping you in the negotiation conversation and positioning you as a great partner.
Incredible answer. I couldn't agree more. Just so you're aware, so these are coming in anonymous.
Okay.
So the next question is, what advice would you give a reproductive health advocate going from podcasting to paid public speaking?
Okay. So this is an interesting one. Um, I would probably want a little bit more information, but I would say leveraging the success of the podcast is going to be a big piece of pitching opportunities for paid speaking. So, again, we kind of go back to the piece of the presentation where we talked about those prospects, right? Like, what are your prospect partners? And I would really think about in the healthcare space, there's so many different branches we can take this, right? We can partner with, organizations that are focused more on women's health, women's leadership, women's professional development, healthcare associations, hospitals, clinicians, maternity, right? I mean, there are so many different avenues here. So it's really important to kind of, narrow down that focus. And honestly, I would really start with those in your smaller kind of circle, right? And so tapping into maybe those kind of warm relationships that we already have, um, maybe organizations, even, nonprofits that are a great place to start that will not be paid, but can help you kind of build that story and that experience of speaking to different groups so that you can better position yourself for paid engagements. And then the other thing is also to think about, all of the different ways that you see paid speakers out there in this space. So offsites can be a great way, right? Going into corporate consulting, um, and conferences, things of that nature, are coming in and speaking to corporate teams, something of that nature, or investors, right? So you want to really think about a kind of a small hit list of targeted potential partners for paid speaking, and then also then think about kind of what's the easiest path to get into there by starting with your warm relationships.
Love that. I think that was really thorough. Thank you so much. The next one is also coming in from anonymous saying, for a small cosmetic brand who wants to increase sales and partnerships, would you recommend or what partnerships would you recommend, especially if the brand has a small budget? How can blogs and SEO be leveraged for partnerships?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, when I talked about the content development partnerships and kind of forming these partnerships by leveraging collateral that's existing for a certain audience. So if you are a small cosmetic brand, maybe you want to think about blogs that are out there, or even communities that are out there that have really engaged audience in, things that would be complementary, right, to a cosmetic brand. So maybe there are makeup tools. I don't know where in the cosmetic, industry this company sits, but we can think about complementary products, and going after those. We can think about the audience in terms of just demographics, right? So even if it has nothing to do with beauty, let's say maybe it's more about wellness, right? And maybe your cosmetic brand, again, we go back to this values alignment. Is your cosmetic brand eco-friendly? Is it made with clean products, right? And so thinking then about how do we line that up with different audiences that are already engaged in a wellness space. And then tapping into, maybe you can pitch an article that could be pushed out in a newsletter that has a big following, in a blog. Podcasts are, also another great way. So there's so many different ways, but I would say, to sum it up, I would focus on, again, what's that kind of first hit list, right? Like, what does your audience value, and understanding your audience demographics so that you can then narrow it down and just start by looking and seeing, I would start with smaller brands, smaller companies, because you're going to end up getting more traction faster. And they're also in a similar place. So if they don't have a big budget and you don't have a big budget, that's really a win-win where you can leverage each other's audiences in that way.
Love that, Samantha. We got a next one that came in from Jennifer Tudor that said, can you talk a bit about event partnerships or sponsorships between CPG brands and event hosts?
Sure. Yeah. This is a great one. And that was kind of, a little bit about that example with the fitness studio, which is, thinking about ways that you can offer value to an existing audience. So whether it's, product giveaways or putting something in a swag bag, it could be even doing some trials, right? Some product sampling, or let's say your product goes really, really well. I'm making this up. Let's say it's some kind of a beverage, and um, I'm thinking beer right now. I don't know why, but beer and like a really cold glass. Right? Like, let's say there's drinkware and a beverage, right? So that's like a match made in heaven. And so thinking about and having that conversation of understanding, well, what other brands are at this event? And maybe thinking creatively about, can we create some kind of an experience? Maybe there's like a competition or a contest, or brand experiences are opportunities that stay with people, right? It's like the value of stories, right? They create an experience, and that's the number one marketing success really is having somebody walk away not just with a product that they're going to throw away, but bringing that to life and really activating it.
I couldn't agree more. I was at an event in the Hamptons this weekend for wellness that was
Oh,
protein, like new protein bars with a pool and like wellness gear. It was incredible.
yeah,
So everything you just hit on resonates
yeah,
with.
perfect. The Hamptons does this perfectly.
We got our last question here, and then we'll be moving on to the closing. But another anonymous attendee says, if a cosmetic company is rebranding and wants to have a founder-led marketing approach, what would you suggest, especially if the founder is a scientist who makes the products?
Ooh, okay. Um, okay, here is where I'm going to answer the question I think that they're asking, which is kind of, when I hear founder led, it's making the founder like the face of the brand. So if that's incorrect, then please feel free to follow up with me and we can have a separate conversation. So this goes really to creating that reputation of, that creating that kind of executive brand, personal brand. And so, especially so for a scientist, that's where getting into those science communities are really important. So, different forums that can offer things like speaking engagements or, opportunities to, collaborate with kind of the greater community, so that you're boosting not only the brand awareness, but really that this is a company rooted in value of health. And so that's where you want all of the other partnership to kind of sprout from. And so that's really what I would focus on, is that promoting the reputation of health by aligning with health communities, health publications, being a contributor to, some kind of magazine or online publication can really be helpful too. So just a couple of quick ideas.
I love those. And Samantha, we like to wrap our sessions at the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center here with a single question that we think does a good job of wrapping the whole presentation. So, if you could give one key takeaway from all of the different things we discussed today for the entrepreneurs on today's call, what would you tell them, or what would you want them to walk away with?
I if we don't walk away with anything but this, I want you to walk away with the idea of a partnership being, really a relationship that you hope will be a sustainable one. So when you think of all of these systems that you're putting in place to scale your CPG brand, partnerships is another huge system that you really need to focus on. So I would leave people with, just remembering that a partnership is, with the idea of it not being one moment in time or one event, but really identifying partners that can be your brand champions, be your brand advocates, really for the long haul, right? So building sustainable systems so that it's increasing that efficiency and that effectiveness of all of your messages and messaging, and leaning into the fact that it's a win-win relationship, right? And so when you do that, people act on your behalf without effort. It becomes more of an effortless collaboration.
I love that, Samantha. And you can consider us here at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center huge brand advocates now for Once Upon a Brand since you took time to work with us today. So I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with our community, share your insights, and get such a great overview for everyone. And on behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone in attendance today, we sincerely thank you for joining us. Um, we would also love for everybody who's on today's call to join us for future upcoming webinars. You can view the upcoming events by using the link in the chat. Thank you all again so much for coming today, and we look forward to welcoming you back again online with us soon. So thank you all, and we will see you soon. And thank you again, Samantha. It was really informative, and I know everyone had an incredible time today on today's call. So we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you all.
Have a great day. Thank you all.